a kick to it, which is the person who's getting billed is not the consumer, it is the business. So this is actually a B2B, business-to-business model, where the business is billed in the background. Very important there is that the business is actually forming the transaction. The taxi driver knows exactly what they're getting into, so that automatic billing is very transparent to the taxi driver. That would be much harder to do in a business-to-consumer setting, where the consumer gets automatically charged. But yes, that is a fourth model that's emerging. It's very true. And I've seen it in cases where there's even very often it relates to a real-world problem that's being redefined by a mobile, and many of them are happening. It's really exciting when that happens. But yeah, that is a fourth model, and it's one definitely worth exploring. Fairly recent, but one that we're seeing some good examples of. Geoff, do you want to?
Yeah, and the interesting thing just with that scenario is what we've really done. Uber's really moved revenue from outside this ecosystem into this ecosystem. So understand that they're taking money away from an existing ecosystem, which we see a lot of. And then in the freemium model, what we often see is destruction of value there. So you take 90% of the cost out because the 10% that's left is so attractive to the disruptor. One of the challenges we've seen with the freemium model from people is at what point do you make people pay? It's very hard to get a feel, and I think this is then, really analytics for me is if you know the right questions, then you can get great answers to your point. If you don't know what questions you're asking, then analytics can really take you into a very scary place. But that threshold of saying, how do you turn somebody from free to paying is a very interesting space.
If I can add to that, and then it becomes even more complicated. Let's say that you find the right place to intercept someone and give them value. Let's say it's in currency. Your game has or your app has a currency. What is the value of that currency? So if they pay you $1, how much currency do you give them? And then what ways do you give to the user to consume that currency? And effectively, every game creates an economy of its own. It creates a currency, just like any country, and then it creates a set of goods that that currency can consume. Many companies have struggled a lot with pricing their currency in the right way, and then they find that, oh my god, my users are not actually monetizing enough. Well, why is that? Well, because I give them so much currency every time they monetize, and it takes forever for them to spend it. So looking at the rate at which your currency gets consumed is very, very important factor. One more thing, if I can say on the Uber, sorry, it's very good.
I was going to make a deflation joke, it's okay.
Yeah, it's fine. Uber is a fascinating example of exactly what you said at the very beginning about applications adding value and delighting the customer. If you think about Uber before Uber X, those nice black limos that pick you up, I don't know if you use the service. This is probably a huge endorsement of Uber. This is great. But they're more expensive. It's probably 10 to 20% more expensive than a regular taxi cab. And if you had asked a lot of people a year ago, would you pay 20% more if you were in a very nice and comfortable environment in a taxi? I bet you many people would have said no. I think cost is a very important criterion for me when I take a taxi ride. I was one of those people. And the reality is, it's such a delightful experience. First of all, the timeliness that they've done with regards to being able to pick up, the cleanliness, the person being very polite, that people are actually paying. And the convenience that I don't have to put on a credit card. So what have they done? They've redefined the entire experience, from booking to experiencing to billing. It has delighted the customer, and guess what? They're paying. That's exactly the type of experiences that we need more creative and mobile, and you guys are the ones that are trying to do that.
So I'll just add to this, because so I've lived in Texas for 15 years, and I'm learning now, having lived here for a while, that there's some differences of opinion between Texas and California. Still trying to understand the nuances of it completely, but you can help me afterwards. And this, because we're in California, I'm going to speak about Texas. What blows me away, I call this the valet parking opportunity. So you go to a restaurant in Texas, and you pull your car up outside the restaurant, and you give somebody $20, and that person literally drives it round the corner and parks it. But everyone does it, because at the end of the day, what people are buying is convenience, and the other spin of that is at the end of the day, we're all very lazy. If someone does something for us, then we're willing to pay very irrational amounts of money to do that. And I think that's what starts to happen. It is so convenient, it's easy. And then you can start to make completely different kinds of money, actually.
The car is great, but it's not having to reach for your wallet. That's the best.
Yes.
Question over here?
Yes, I have a question for Flurry.
He's leaving.
It's regarding rewarding users within apps instead of actually charging them for money within the in-app experience. Things like sponsor pay and Tapjoy, do you have some data around that you can share with us? Some thoughts around that?
Absolutely. Great question. So one of the ways in which people or developers make revenues and also let their users, as you said, get currency in their apps is by not asking them to pay, but rewarding them with currency if they engage with advertisers in different ways. It actually can be quite profitable and quite successful for the developer, and also for advertisers in some cases it's proven to be very effective as well, the advertisers who are showing those. Probably the most effective way of doing this on iOS, on the Apple platform, is through rewarded video. So rewarded video allows you to show typically a 15-second video clip, maybe 30-second video clip to the user. And if they complete watching that video, they get a small amount of currency, which gives them enough to consume something in your app. And then at the end of watching a video, they're able to download the application that the video is about or visit our website. That alone can actually drive, in some cases, maybe 20 or 30% of the total monetization of an application, based on what we've seen in some of our customers. On the Android platform, video is one. Rewarded installs also happen on the Android platform. Apple has not allowed rewarded installs for quite some time now, but the Android platform allows that. So there you get rewarded for actually installing another application. And that can be even more profitable than video. But both methods are actually quite effective.
Yeah. Anybody use Hulu here? The reward to get the 30-second spot every 12 minutes. I always felt like that was how to save newspapers. Just make somebody watch a 6-second ad before they can read the rest of the story.
Yeah,
Right? Yeah. I mean, it's do it in New York Times instead of having a subscription to the Wall Street Journal. You have to watch, and you can pick the experience. Which one of these ads is more relevant to you? Okay, your time you can log in. It's just.
And if I can say, it's really interesting. Sorry, we'll get 1 second. But as a follow to that, the person who watches the video, even though they're getting rewarded to watch the video, it turns out that if they decide to install the application afterwards, they're a very good user of that application. And we've actually used Flurry analytics to measure the quality of those users, retention, all the good things we said before, what percentage paid, what percentage stayed. We have found that the users who get sourced through a video advertisement, a rewarded video advertisement, are up to 25% more valuable than the average user of that application. So effectively what you've done is you've reduced the friction, if you will, and by encouraging the user to start watching a video. And then if your app is actually good and the video is relevant to them, they will engage and then you're going to get a good user. So there's a better chance that you're going to earn the user's business. So it's very good for the advertisers as well. Right now we're trying to grow our inventory of video as much as possible because advertisers can't get enough of this.
And part of the issue is agencies don't want to build 15-second spots. It's not cost effective on the antiquated, old as hell part of the industry.
If I were you, I would be thinking about building. It's very cheap for you yourself as a small app to build a video of your app. And some of those video networks to build it for you. I think it would be a very, very good way for you to experiment.
So, Geoff mentioned something about the right time to charge a customer for a freemium app. So do any of you know of any examples of freemium apps that can monetize successfully purely through advertising, where people don't even have to spend any extra money? Isn't that possible, or do you think that's impossible given current ad rates?
No, there are. I mean, it depends on the, first of all, in the world of games, a lot of the applications have currency. So any app that has currency typically has the option of buying within a purchase. But there's a number of games that do not have currency that purely monetize on advertising. A lot of the casual games, like Solitaire, or there's a number of Solitaire games out there, for example, do not have a currency that help you do anything further in the app. And they find that they monetize very well with advertising. One of the reasons why they monetize very well purely with advertising is their audience. Because many, for example, of the casual games, at least that we see based on our audience measurement in our system, many of them, for example, have a slightly older audience, and a very good male-female ratio, actually higher female than male ratio, and many advertisers that's a demographic that they're willing to really target. Therefore, they get higher CPMs or revenue per 1,000 impressions, and that helps them actually fund the entire operation without any purchases. When it comes to non-games, a number of non-games don't have currency, so many of them are dependent on purely advertising.
And I think I'd go back to the starting comment we made actually, that it's incredibly early days in terms of mobile. So the immediate gut reaction to answer that question is one of trying to think of applying traditional advertising products into the mobile space. I think what we've seen is an underwhelming adoption of that being appropriate, in that environment. What we do see now, though, is year-on-year doubling of ad spend into mobile. So there's something changing. Facebook contextually starting to build, different products and different relevance. So traditional like taking web advertising models, putting into mobile, I think is an underwhelming monetization opportunity versus actually, new mobile-centric product that makes more sense.
I think a great example from the app of that on the web, exactly what I'm sorry, this is an exciting topic, is contextual ads that are relevant to where you're at. Weather, for example, is a fantastic example. If it's raining, what Weather Channel has done with their mobile application is it makes the ads from the brand that they're advertising have a rainy background because it recognizes that you're in a rainy environment. So that makes you actually more conducive to actually interacting with it. So these are ways in which the mobile world can actually create advertisements that use the signals that the desktop world does not have, such as where are you right now, or what's the weather around where you are right now based on your location.
So I'll give you a brilliant thing I heard earlier today actually. So all cars are going to get connected in the next 2 to 3 years. All those cars, when the windscreen wipers go, they all message you back saying it's raining here, and here's my location, and you build up a real-time weather map of granularity that you've never seen before, and the car people, are in a different proposition. And that was one, there's actually a hackathon tonight. The Ford guys are doing a hackathon tonight somewhere, tech something. I'm not sure where it is. If you want, but there is those people that are, thinking around those ideas. So it's rethinking, rethinking things a little bit.
This is going to end up with the Weather Channel being the most powerful company in the world. I'm sure it's going to be the new Halliburton.
I want to go back to this rewards approach. I became aware of a company called KIIP, who maybe other people know about it. It was news to me about a kind of a reward system that apparently advertisers like McDonald's will say, we want to get these dollar off coupons into the hands of various people. You, as a game developer, if there's a moment where you want to reward your user for some achievement, you say, hey, bingo, you just got this coupon from McDonald's, click here to redeem it, and you, the game developer, your user got a coupon, which has some value, a real world value, and you, as the game developer, got something, 25, 50 cents, some seemingly large amount of money for doing what you needed to do anyway in your game, which was reward your user. And it strikes me as so win-win that I'm actually kind of suspicious of it. It seems like, well, this is too easy. We need to reward our users throughout the game, and they're going to pay us to do it and pay them to receive it. It's like, wait a minute, does anybody have experience with this? Any insights in this this is a new model, right?
I can share some thoughts on it. I'll be very curious, how many people have used Keep in the audience? It's an interesting model, a fairly new model. It's been around for about a year and change that I'm aware of. Effectively, it rewards users for continuing to engage in your app. And it rewards them with real life things. At the end of the day, I'm not sure, I don't have enough data to tell you if it works or not. I think it does generate some reasonable revenue for the, actually, it doesn't, I'm not sure if the publisher actually earns revenue other than the benefit of getting the user to advance in their application. Yeah, the game developer. Yeah. They do get some revenue too.
25, 50 cents.
Yeah. So I think overall, I think the main question for me that developers should be looking at this is what happens to my users 30-day retention as a result of this. I think to me that's a very, if I were to go back always on one metric, it would, what, am I getting more effective in truly retaining my users as a result of this activity? No doubt, by definition, because this activity, the user gets paid when they engage more, that will increase your engagement immediately. Now, what happens to that user after they've got that reward? Am I making my users used to always expecting something in order to advance in the app? Or is my app winning them over, and from then on, they keep on using my app independent of being rewarded? And I think that's really the question that I haven't yet answered about this, to figure out to what extent it leads to a more permanent positive impact in retention.
The other really, we have some experience with this at the Alliance, but one of the interesting components of that is the feedback loop hasn't been closed yet in terms of you earn the rewards playing solitaire, you capitalize on a discount given to you by Arby's. Can you, as the publisher, know that that's what was going on, or does it just keeping that information to themselves? So you can't really evaluate the value of your users, as Yannis was saying. But it is a great model. Why not? And that's what you're trying to do anyway.
And I think with dancing, actually, again, early days on this, right, but connecting those offers to the people who really want those offers. I think the opportunity today is to increase the matching of delivery to customer, right? Because if I get a McDonald's coupon inside an application, that doesn't really turn me on that much. But if you give me, a voucher to get $2 off a beer at a bar, then kind of like they obviously know who I am, and
They have to give you money back.
that would be, if you want to target me, that's probably how you do that.
Sure. I can smell the pizza, so we're going to take one more question.
I just want to point out this point. This is, if Edward Snowden ever comes back to the USA, he's going to be in an environment like this. I just want to mention that.
I wanted to spill
Our
all
pizzas
this.
are ready and they're waiting outside.
Question is related to the class of apps that's the Uber-like, where you're going into the app to do a payment or an offline service, which is very different from a freemium app. In the freemium world, we figured out that engagement is a great proxy for figuring out how much this app is going to make. What is the right metric for these Uber-like apps where it's not engagement? Because when they go into the app, they're going to make a payment. So what are metrics that they should be thinking about?
Yeah, one thing that I would say is, repeat usage effectively of the app. And it is how many, first of all, it will acquire users, but at the end of the day, how many of the users you acquire are actually coming back? And what is the stickiness of the app? A metric that we're looking for stickiness is, on any given month, how many times has a user come back to your application? And then I think for that purpose, one of the things that is also having an interesting trend right now in mobile is the notion of re-engagement or retargeting. The ability of notifying your user to come back to the app because something is relevant for them. So you see, for example, in the case of the taxis, it's, they notice that the user goes out at 7 or 8 o'clock at night on a Friday night. Well, on next Friday or Saturday night, say, going out, you've got a taxi ready for you. So finding a way to engage them, whether it's push notifications, which can be annoying, quite frankly, or advertisements that find that user in other places, in other apps that they're in, which is something that we're currently actually doing at Flurry, with our engagement service. That's a very important aspect. So for those apps, it's all about getting them in, because you're right, once you get them in, you know what they're going to do. They're going to complete all the way the funnel. But the biggest risk with those is they may never get back in because they're going to forget about it.
A really interesting thing when you're measuring the life value of a user when it comes to that model is the cluster that comes, the geographic cluster of word of mouth. Obviously, discoverability and monetization are closely linked, and you can't avoid those conversations. The Alliance Research and Emerging Tech Working Group actually released a white paper a few months ago that dealt with discoverability as sort of the main topic and looked at user retention and the incredible number of people that will download an app and literally never click on it again. And the number of apps that are sitting in the iStore right now that have never been downloaded once, not even by the guy who built it or his mother. And given that that's the noise that you're trying to fight through, that once you've broken through that wall, you have a user and they've come back once in 30 days or once in 7 days, are they spreading the word? How happy were they about it? And I don't mean to scale like tweeting out. I'm saying Uber's the best. Let's use Uber when we go to this thing and you tell 3 people, and you can see that in a geographic heat cluster of where your users are coming from. You can retarget ads based on it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a great, I mean, it's a great example though, because actually it's not, that's not as much about mobile app monetization as the more the basic of what can we do differently because now everyone's connected with mobile, and what do we not even realize we're doing anymore. So we've never questioned how to get cabs before we became one, that's the genius of it, but now it's like, oh, it's so convenient, right? And if you can have a value proposition like that, then your question is, what, does it have to be free? Do you have to pay? What is the transactional value inside it? But there's almost, I see this happening in every single industry. Every single industry, there's people who are reinventing how those value chains work because you can do something on your own.
Great. Okay, so a couple small pieces of housekeeping. Thank you to Twilio for hosting us today at this